You're listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series, Lucky You. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith, and the interview subject I've got coming up for you. So I've got to throw in some humour from time to time in my introductions here. They sound so dry, don't they? Should look at fixing that, but I probably won't. Anyway, let's get on with it. The interview subject you're going to hear from is Kevin Jordan from the outfit This Wildlife. The reason for the conversation is to promote their October 2017 tour of Australia with Mayday Parade. So let's have a listen to what Kevin has to say. Here we go.
Down here in Australia, and you have toured here a few times before, but what can fans, Australian fans I should say, expect from your tour in October?
Well, the first time when we actually came to Australia, we didn't even have our first record out yet. So we were kind of, I want to say we were playing only 5 or 6 songs in small clubs. And, you know, and it was on a support tour, so we had a really short set. And then the second time that we came over, we were there on the Soundwave Festival. And we played, we always thought it was really funny that our set and our billing for the tour, for this festival, we were the very smallest last name on the flyer for Soundwave, and we played on the smallest stage first in the day. So,
Right.
So it ended up being like incredibly successful for us. Those were some of the biggest crowds we've played for, as a band ever. So we've kind of been really jonesing to get back over there, and this opportunity came up to go kind of celebrate Mayday Parade's 10-year anniversary. Yeah. And we toured with them in the States once before, and we just jumped at it. We're super, super excited to get back over there. And hopefully next year we can follow it up with our first headline tour there. We'd love to bring the performances that we're doing in the States. We'd love to bring that over there as well.
Excellent, mate. And you mentioned the Soundwave tour there. What were your recollections of the tour as a whole, like in terms of going from city to city? Because if I'm not mistaken, there's about 40 or 50 bands, and most of them are from outside of Australia, so they're what we call international bands. Did you have a great time on the tour? And is there any interesting tour stories you could share for the podcast listeners?
It was really fun. We ended up kind of like touring with the same group of bands the whole time.
Yes.
So, going from either hotels to buses to planes or whatever. But we ended up traveling with Papa Roach and King 810 the whole time.
Nice.
And it was kind of interesting that during the tour, backstage one time, Jacoby Shaddix walked by and he just looked at me and said, "Sweet beard, bro." And I was like, just cracking up because I'm like, how did my life get to this point where it's like, I grew up listening to Papa Roach. I'm like, somehow I'm in Australia and Jacoby Shaddix is complimenting me when he walks by casually. I'm like, this is so ridiculous. So I tweeted something about like this is insane that my life is here, and Jacoby Shaddix just said this to me. And then the I forget what his name is, but the owner of Soundwave, he ended up tagging Jacoby in that tweet and totally just like sold me out to him. And the next day, he sits down next to me on the bus and is just like, "Hey, what's up, man? I saw your tweet yesterday." And I'm like, "Fuck."
Yeah, the owner's name is AJ. And I think it's Shaz or Shaz.
Yeah,
is his name. Yeah. Yes, no, it's a shame that the festival hasn't been able to continue, actually. It was fairly well documented what happened through its demise. I think it was beginning of 2015 is when it stopped. I think there was promotions started for it, but then there were some fairly well documented issues around finances and the like that unfortunately poleaxed it. But I can tell you, mate, since it's left Australian shores, mate, or since it's not been around, mate, we've really felt it down here, actually.
Yeah, I think that we actually played like the last one that happened in 2014, and yeah, I'm bummed because it seemed like it was such a cool festival for the fans and for the band, and I bet there's kind of a big gap in artists going to Australia now after something like that goes away. And I know Big Day Out is kind of like a similar
that's right.
festival that isn't happening anymore, and
yeah, I'd love to understand
for whatever reason that those festivals aren't.
No, you're not wrong. I'd just love to understand what I mean. I'm a fan first and foremost, and you're an artist, and I guess we only get told what we get told. But I'd love to find out if it's possible again to resurrect the beast, because to your point, mate, yeah, we do miss out on a lot of wonderful touring acts that we could almost rely on like clockwork to come down here, whether it be the Big Day Out or the Soundwave festivals. So there's a few boutique festivals, laneway festivals and the like that occur, but mate, nothing of the size of those two festivals these days. So hopefully somebody out there, preferably someone with the experience like AJ himself, is able to get the festival back up and running again, or another festival like it. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I imagine it's just a matter of time for something like that, and the promoters need to recover, from whatever kind of bad press they've had or whatever financial losses that they've had. And I bet if an investor comes in and the right people try to build it again, that there will definitely be another successful festival in Australia in the near future.
Yeah, cool, mate.
And we'd love to be a part of it. So if you know anybody, let them know.
I'd love to see you guys on there. Yeah, no, I'd love to see you guys on there. Just as an aside, I talk to a lot of musicians and artists from around the world, and it's coming up quite a bit that I know obviously you guys are coming down in October with Mayday Parade, but a lot of artists that I talk to are only, when I say only, they're promoting an album, not necessarily a tour like you guys are. But it does come up more than half a dozen times now. Do you know anybody that can help us get down to Australia? So here's a bit of a hint. If I can partner with somebody to help bring down more excellent artists and more excellent bands, mate, I'll look at doing that, because I've just exited my career as a telco account executive to focus more on the music, because I'm also a musician. But mate, there's definitely a gap in the market there for bringing bands down to Australia. That's for sure. I suppose you've just got to work at how if you don't make money, you don't lose all your money, and B, who wants to come down?
Yeah, I think it's tough, and I think the only bands that are really going out there right now are the sure things, like the bands that they know are going to sell out the venues, because I think promoters have taken some losses in the last few years, and they're trying to be really safe with what they bring out.
Yeah.
So it's like, obviously, your bands like Amity, Affliction, Paris, like that stuff makes sense, and Smooth Horizon, the Architects, they can all go over there because everybody knows that everybody's going to win. But I think what really suffers is the smaller bands, the developing acts that are kind of untested there. So we've never headlined there, so we're not getting any offers to go and play a headline tour, because I think not only would we be worried, but the promoters probably would just be totally worried that they wouldn't get their money back. Yes.
Hey, quick question then. Has your experience as a touring artist been universally positive, or have you had some pretty... I'm not asking you to share direct experiences, but what's the ratio of positive to negative experiences, do you think? As I say, mate, I'll reframe the question. When you're touring and the like, is it almost always a given that things are going to go pear-shaped at some point? Not all the time, but just occasionally. And how do you handle the setbacks on tour?
I think it's tough, because your time on the road, like, at least for me, my experience on tour is directly correlated with how well the shows are going.
Yes.
So if people are coming out and we're playing well and I feel healthy, then I'm loving it, and it's like my favorite thing in the world. But if you're, playing to porter-filled rooms, or you're losing money, or you're sick or something like that, it can be such a bummer. Just knowing that you don't have like a bed to go home to at night, it's like, gosh, we have to go and do this again. But I would say overall, it's that I really, really enjoy it, and that even when at the end of a tour, when we're going home and I'm excited to go home, that excitement to be home and to enjoy those things, like being able to cook my own meals and sleep in my own bed, that stuff, you end up miss the road pretty quickly, actually.
Yes, I've heard that quite a bit, actually. It's in your blood, isn't it? Doing what you guys do.
I guess so. I've been touring for like almost 10 years, so I definitely miss it when I'm not out there. And like today, I'm getting ready to go to California just to start rehearsals for our next tour that we're playing, and Warped Tour is actually here in town today, and I'm just like, I don't have the time to go to the tour and see some friends and stuff like that. And it's like, it bums me out. And when I see other bands traveling when I'm at home and stuff, I'm always jealous. So I think I think that's actually the proof is in the pudding there.
No, good on you, mate.
When
That's
I see
excellent.
other people out on tour, it makes me want to be there too.
Yeah, that's. I think it's really important that people listening that are fans of what you do understand that how passionate you are. That you're such a fan of being on the road and performing for people that when you get home, you can't wait to get back out again. I think it's the same, mate. I think it's important that people hear that.
I guess I hadn't really thought about it that way. That if I had to say whether I love touring or not, it's like the easiest thing to tell is that I miss it when I'm not on the road.
So you are one of those blokes that is very easy to identify with from a fan perspective. And what I mean by that is you don't mind sharing some of the more personal aspects of your psyche. So I watched a YouTube clip where you talk about relationships and friendships, and my question for you now is, would you say that's important for artists and musicians to open up to their fans and to their audience?
I think it depends. It depends on what you're comfortable with. And if you're writing the kinds of songs that, like, lyrically they're just kind of broad strokes, they're really ambiguous, or you're just kind of creating stories, which I think is totally cool. It's not really my style. I choose to write about things that are personal to me and things that I care about.
Yep.
But for me, it is important to kind of just like show where these songs are coming from. The thing that I want people to walk away with more than anything when they see us live or listen to our record is that it's coming from a place that's honest and these songs are sincere and special to me. So I think opening up about some of that kind of stuff can be not only good for me personally, just to kind of get stuff off my chest at times, but I've definitely seen it be a positive impact on other people.
Yes.
For some reason, I think people just tend to feel a little bit better about their problems when they know that other people are going through the same thing.
I agree.
And
yes.
I don't know. It's almost a little self-serving where it's like, well, shit, I don't got it so bad. I don't get it so bad because other people have it just as bad or worse. And I don't know why people feel better when other people are feeling crappy, but I think sharing that kind of stuff is really humanizing, and it just shows people that, everybody is weak and strong and totally different and unique, but also the same. And to me, it's just, I don't know, I've gotten more and more comfortable sharing who I am and my flaws as a whole.
You spoke very well, and you made some very interesting points in an interview with Spare Change News in 2015. And of course, that was well before Donald Trump got into power. And I guess my question for you now is, what's your take on things now that Donald Trump's in power? Obviously, your views on these things have probably only been affirmed or have been strengthened, unfortunately, because, as I say, you did make some very good points about racism, police brutality and homelessness. But I was particularly interested in the comments that you made about veterans and mental illness, because I too noticed that it does seem to be something that gets not addressed as well as it needs to be. There are a lot of veterans, both in Australia and America, that come back from these wars we as a nation are fighting overseas. And, somehow people are falling through the cracks. But I guess probably a long way to raise the question, mate. But really, it's a question about what's your take on the way things are now that Donald Trump's in power?
I think it's... first of all, I'm not a supporter of Trump, like in any way almost. And I think that it's kind of allowed people to, it's like there's kind of been like a sleeping racism that's gone on in the States for a long time, I think. And I think in a way it was almost like, well, at least these people that have these really awful things to say about people of color, at least they're scared to not say these kinds of things. And I would rather prefer that they didn't think those things at all. But I do think that Trump's rhetoric during the campaign and now as the president has given these people confidence to come out and be blatantly hateful and racist and angry again. And he's kind of like woken up like what I think is like a sleeping giant of what was kind of just an underlying racism that exists in the States and has always existed in the States. But I don't know, maybe there will be like a positive to it. Maybe now that, the beast has shown its face, maybe it'll be easier to identify what the problems are and who these people are that need to wisen up. And I honestly, I think that anything that's going to take place in society is always going to take like at least an entire generation. And I see it from my grandpa, who was a great guy who took care of our family, but he was racist as all hell, and it's just the way that he was raised. He was raised in an Italian neighborhood in Chicago, and that was the culture at the time. And I see how much more accepting my mom was than her father, and I see how much more accepting I am than my mother. And I think it's totally moving in the right direction, but it's just going to take it's going to take an entire generation. It's going to take me having a kid for that kid to be raised in a time where they're just not judgmental of any kind of minorities or any people's way of life, where they're just more accepting. And it's just going to take time, man. It's sad to say, but I think that some old people need to die off, and so do their ideals.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. If you think you've hit the nail on the head with the hammer there, I think it is an intergenerational thing, and I think through the generations, eventually, it is going to disappear. And I think you're certainly right. I mean, I'm the first person in my family, even here in Australia, to marry someone who'd be considered, I think the word you guys use in the States, person of colour, and in that she's my wife's half Filipino, half Croatian. And I had to do a check on that the other day, actually, to see that if I was the first person. But yeah, there you go. I think it's just a case of, I also think it's a case of we now work in environments where we're not siloed anymore. You are going to work with people from different faiths, different cultural backgrounds and the like. And, mate, at the end of the day, we're all human beings, aren't we?
For sure. And I think, like I was saying earlier, how it takes time for those things to go away. I think that there are still, results of segregation here in the States, and you see it, like, especially back east, you'll go out there and there's just neighborhoods where it's like, okay, this is a Jewish neighborhood, this is a black neighborhood, this is a Filipino neighborhood. Yeah. And I think at least growing up in California, you don't see that as much. You see a lot more of, mixed race families, mixed race neighborhoods, and but there's still like ripples of segregation and racism all over the place, and it's gross. But I think seeing like the next generation of kids and how being at least like something like being quote unquote woke is like popular. I'm like, well, if there's going to be some like dorky slang term or something like that, at least it's that, like be proud about being aware of the the world around you.
Yes, no, very good point, mate. Mate, in the interest of time, I'll wrap things up, but I've got 3 questions that I ask all of my interview subjects here, so I'd love it if you could play along, and believe me, your answers can be as not safe for work as you like, because I am an R-rated program. So here we go. Choose 3 words to describe yourself. Tough
I would say, yeah. I think passionate, loving, and dorky.
Awesome, nice ones. I think I've had passionate, but I haven't had dorky yet. So thank you for adding that to the lexicon. That's cool. All right. The next one, Kevin, is if you could go back to when you were 18 and give yourself some advice, what do you think you'd say?
Honestly, I've always thought that, I've always wished that I would have joined the military when I was 18. I started touring when I was 18, and I played in a band that, just ultimately was doomed to be unsuccessful, and I spent a lot of time doing it because I wasn't aware of, the landscape of the music industry and stuff like that. And I wish I would have enlisted in the military and kind of built a better future for myself and served. I think it would have been really beneficial to me.
Oh, good on you, mate. Yeah, no, it's a really good point. I haven't had that one either. Gosh, okay, so a couple of firsts there. That's a nice one. And Yeah, no, it's the most common response that I have to that question is usually I wouldn't go back and give myself any advice because I wouldn't be where I am now. But then I've heard everything else in between, so there you go. Anyway, I'll get to the final question, and this one usually stumps people, mate. So I'll be very keen to hear what your response is. But here we go. What 5 guests, living or dead, would you invite to dinner?
Ooh. Who would I invite to dinner? I would probably say Dwayne Johnson. He's like
nice.
been the last few years, he's been my favorite celebrity. I think not only is he super funny, but I think that he's like a really positive, good dude. And like, I kind of started off as like a joke, like loving Dwayne Johnson because he's like, obviously he makes some pretty corny movies and stuff, but I ended up following him online, and I think that he's actually one of the most like inspirational dudes that's in Hollywood, and he always makes time for his fans. And to me as an artist, I think it's really inspiring that somebody is as busy, as rich and famous as him, still on a daily basis makes time for the people that allow him to do what he loves and allow him to, you know, provide for his family and stuff. And I think that's pretty unheard of in celebrity dumb in general. And so he's pretty inspirational to me, and he's super buff, and I wish that I was super buff.
Likewise, yeah, we see him down here quite a bit promoting his various movies and the like, and he appears on a show called The Footy Show quite a bit. Now, I don't watch that too often, but he certainly knows how to interact with people, and a bit like your good self, mate, I think he's got a lot of empathy. Yeah,
he really focuses on being uplifting to people and just inspiring other people. I think he has a really unique story of where he comes from, and I don't know, I just love the guy.
Yeah, no, fair point. So you got 4 more to go after that one. So,
oh shit! I thought it was only 1. Sorry for rambling on about that.
No, you're right. It's all good. No, no worries. You gave great context to it all.
I had no idea it was 4.
You're right.
Let's see. I would say one of my musical heroes would be Jim Adkins, the singer of Jimmy Eat World. So
nice,
I've been pretty lucky to meet like most of the people, or even work with some of the people that are like some of my musical heroes. And he's one of the only ones that I've never even met. So yeah, he'd be on there. Let's see. Michael Jordan. I grew up playing a lot of basketball, and then I stopped growing when I was in like 9th grade. So I stopped, but I was always a big Michael Jordan fan.
Yes, good one,
so
mate.
He would be very, very cool to meet.
Yep.
Let's see. I've got an actor. I've got a musician. Got somebody in sports. What am I missing here? Let's go politics. Barack Obama.
There you go, mate. That rounds it out nicely.
Barack Obama seems like a great guy to sit down with.
Yeah, he always looked like he knew how to crack a joke. I don't think I ever heard him do any serious jokes, but he'd be quite an interesting guy to listen to after a couple of scotches, I reckon.
Yeah, if I could have a few beers with Barack Obama, I think that we could do a lot of good.
Yeah, no, indeed, mate. Mate, I better let you get back to it. You have been a fantastic guest for the episode. Very open, mate. I do love your music, by the way. You do have a lot of fans down here in Australia, as you probably know. But, mate, I'll certainly be in the audience when you guys come down here in October with Mayday Parade. And, sorry, bit of a mouthful here, but I'll just end by saying congratulations on a wonderful career to date, and, well, long may it continue.
Thank you so much, man. Yeah, I'm excited to get out there. Please come say hello and grab a beer with me. Maybe you'll be the
for sure.
the 5th guy that I'll add to my list of people I need to have a beer with.
Nice. Yes, no, definitely, mate. I'll look out for you when I'm at the show.
All right, sounds good.
No worries, mate. Okay, all the best, and thanks very much.
You've been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and that conversation featured Kevin Jordan from the US outfit This Wildlife. Thank you so much for listening.